Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Turnbuckle Trash Talk. We have a special episode with us today. I am Ref Tony Stabile, and I will be the host this evening. And we are interviewing Kent Klausner. Kent, how does it feel to finally be a guest on your own show?
It feels really weird. Something that I never really thought was going to happen.
Is this the seat you usually sit in? Or
that is usually the seat I sit in. So I'm actually in the guest chair.
Seat. I like that. That's consistency.
It's very odd. I did not ever think this was going to be the case.
We talked about doing this episode for a while now because you interview so many people. Yeah, you put out content like consistently and constantly. And it's like, well, how about a Kent episode? Let's do that. Let's see,
It's going to be the lowest rated episode we have, but sure. Well, you're here, so maybe it'll be fine.
We'll get a little spike
in
the numbers. We'll see how that goes. I doubt it. That's okay.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure and an honor, my friend.
Absolutely.
That. I see. I had to wear the Turnbuckle shirt.
Well, I have to represent the actual brand.
As the guest, you should be putting that over.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that, man. This is fun.
It's going to be good.
So, so you've been doing these episodes for the show for quite a while now.
Actually, it's going to be the 1 year anniversary this coming January. Yeah.
Wow, nice.
It's
been about a year.
It's been a year.
I remember when you started up, and the stickers and the shirts, everything going.
The interview Wednesdays have only been going, I think, about 6 or 7 months now. But for the most part, the show started a year ago in January. So yeah, it's exciting.
That's fucking cool.
I didn't think we'd make it this far, so I'm excited to see it keep going. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get right into this actually.
Let's do it.
So you do this show. It's all about wrestling and wrestlers and everyone else in the business as well, because you also interview ring announcers, guys that sell merch.
Anybody who's involved, even backstage people.
Backstage guys, ring crew you've had on here before. A lot of different unique perspectives.
Yeah, I think they're all an important part of the show.
Yeah.
I think every little piece is an important part of putting an entire show together. We talk about teamwork a lot on this show. That's what a lot of people say. They wish they could change, is that there was more teamwork.
Yeah.
But I don't think casual viewers actually realize just how much teamwork there is. And so I wanted to highlight that with Interview Wednesday by talking to every piece of the wrestling puzzle, so to speak.
I think those are some of my favorite episodes as well, because you're getting a different, unique perspective on the business. A lot of guys don't know about, or like oh, that's really interesting. Like, that's very cool to hear.
Yeah, like I said, I think that everyone is an important part. I think everyone deserves their moment in the spotlight, whatever form that may take, whether that's in the ring or being interviewed. And I think that by highlighting all the different perspectives, you can also help shape the business into what we all want it to be by hearing what people are really thinking and really feeling about wrestling. We can actually turn it in the direction we want it to go in, especially during a time where it seems like everything is changing right now.
Oh yeah, there's so much going on. You can't keep up with what's going on nowadays.
Absolutely.
But all that being said about different perspectives on interesting things with the business, what initially got you into wrestling in general, like growing up?
It was my grandfather, actually.
Okay.
Apparently, I had been hanging out with him watching wrestling even further back than I can remember, but I distinctly remember watching WrestleMania V.
Okay.
That's my first actual memory, and obviously, just like a lot of people, Hulk Hogan was my favorite.
Yeah.
I eventually grew to Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, the whole gamut of people, but Hulk Hogan,
as a kid,
anybody from our generation knew Hulk Hogan, even if they didn't like wrestling.
Exactly. We all knew who Hulk Hogan was. It was
Thunder in Paradise.
Everything with Hulk Hogan.
Absolutely. He was everywhere.
But you had to live through that time to realize how big he actually was.
Absolutely.
It was everywhere, if you're big enough to own Pasta Mania and make that a thing, you had to be big.
Absolutely. I remember the commercials with him.
Yeah.
Like Chef Boyardee and everything, and it's just I had one of those stand-up inflatable punching bags of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
I had the old action figures.
So much merch.
You get swept up in it because it was such a cultural sensation at the time. And I imagine, of course I lived through that era too, but the Attitude Era kind of had that feel too. You see people wearing Austin 316 shirts.
Where it was cool to be into wrestling, which I was very grateful for that phase of wrestling, because I could, be a wrestling nerd out in the open. Other guys thought it was cool.
Absolutely.
I've always been cool. Yeah.
Well, right now, nerd culture is such a huge thing, with Marvel being a huge thing, Disney being a huge thing. The Mandalorian's the biggest show on TV right now.
Newest episode was amazing.
Yes.
By the way. Episode 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm a Star Wars fanatic and have been my whole life. So to be able to openly be like, I love Star Wars, and have everyone else be like, us too.
To have that with wrestling
that's how it translates to wrestling. It's it's nice to have people to connect with about it, because it was kind of a in the closet hidden secret throughout
Yeah.
like high school and stuff. I only had a couple friends who liked it, and everyone else made fun of it. So
I had the Buff Bagwell NWO choker and like the hat.
all right, we got to see photos of that.
I wish
if there are
was.
photos, there's no photos.
Dude, I have no photos of me as a kid, especially as a cringy teenager.
Dude, I would have loved
Bro,
that.
it was the stupidest thing I've ever worn in my life, but I loved it.
I would have loved that.
Vicious and Delicious to me were like the end-all best tag team. They were great. Scott Norton is the fucking man.
Scott Norton is the man. I'm not going to argue with you there.
I would
but
die to work with
Buff
Scott Norton.
Bagwell, really?
I was a huge fan. I was more of a Scott Norton fan. Buff Bagwell,
Okay.
like,
you know, it's a package.
their
They come
dynamic together was so good.
Yes.
Well, you got me on the old like Mayhem games on 64.
Yep.
Vicious and Delicious, all the
No,
all
I
the way.
played all the 64 games. I played the WrestleMania arcade game, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
old school
Oh,
arcade
yeah.
game. I remember I would play hockey at a skating rink, and they had the arcade game, and so of course I'd play that and then go play hockey.
A couple laps on the rink,
Right,
at the ice.
exactly.
And like, nope, I go back
Exactly.
to WrestleMania
Yep.
now.
Yep.
So since you said you started watching wrestling as a child before you can even remember, were you always into wrestling?
I did take a break.
A lot of people have.
I mean, I want to say middle school was kind of a break because
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't as cool. It was kind of before the Attitude
Was this
Era
like the new
started to kick
generation
off.
era?
Yeah. It was kind of like meh, and it wasn't cool to be into wrestling, and like
No,
peer pressure, especially at that age, is so strong.
Yeah,
That if people
yeah.
are like, that's stupid, you don't have the confidence in yourself necessarily to be like, I don't care, I
Yeah,
still
yeah.
love it. Then I had a spell in high school, and then after the Attitude Era ended, I kind of fell out of it again.
Yeah.
For, on and off for
you
several
come and go,
years.
but you always come back to it.
You always do. I mean,
You always do.
there's something that's always going to draw you back, and I'm big into like entertainment and like theater
Yeah.
and characters, and so wrestling always
Wrestling
brings
ticks
me
all those
back.
boxes.
Yep.
Was that what decided you to get into the business initially? Like,
My life took some really crazy turns. I mean, I ended up getting divorced. I moved to Florida. Like
Yeah.
a lot of things just kind of fell into place where it was like, if you're gonna do this now. Like
Yeah.
there's no better time.
yeah. When your life is at the utmost crazy, it's like, I'm gonna jump into wrestling, make that my thing now.
Well, even like as of a year before moving here, I was like, well, my life is set that I'm going to be doing what I'm doing now for the rest of it. And then, of
Yeah.
course, everything got thrown into a tizzy and changed.
yeah.
And I was-
While everything's up in the air, you might as well try your hand at something
Yeah,
new.
exactly.
It's a good time to branch out and try some
It
things
was a
creatively.
bucket list thing, to be honest. Like, it was just
Yeah.
one of those, like, if I could, that'd be amazing. If I could just be in a ring for one match. I didn't think it'd be as a wrestler because I don't have the discipline to eat right and, go to the gym all the time.
I hear that.
But it was just, it just all worked out. And, like, I know Jay Lethal's school was really
Yeah.
close to my house.
That's where you trained, right?
That is
Tampa
where
Bay?
I trained. I trained at the Lethal Academy through Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling,
Yeah.
which was in itself an amazing experience. I mean,
Yeah.
I had seen Jay at Ring of Honor, in TNA. Like, that was, in my mind, the closest to, like, marking out for somebody that I was going to get. 'Cause
Right,
it was
right.
such an incredible opportunity to work with him.
Because you're originally from Michigan.
Right.
And you moved down here to
Right,
go to elite
exactly.
school. Meanwhile, I was in Michigan, and I trained at House of Truth Martini.
And
those
there's a
those
connection
guys
there.
are both, so I come all the way down here, then I meet you, who's from up there, and we're
Yep.
like, same kind of like.
Well, yeah, we can bond over our fellow Michigander status.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, in training, did you start off wrestling training, or did you go right into being a referee?
They told me, I had told them right away I wanted to be a manager.
Okay.
And they were like, well, you have to do, at least the intro class.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I understand. Like, you do bump as a manager, and like
You
do
got to
that
understand the
kind of
psychology, what's going on, to know how to properly manage a
Yeah.
guy in a match.
So I started the wrestling training, and midway through, it just seemed like there was a need for referees. Just
Yeah.
constantly. Like, they always needed a referee. And I was like, well, I'd hit a point in the training where it was like, everything I learned from now on isn't going to be really applying to me
Yeah,
necessarily. Like, how to put on certain holds and everything. If I need to do that, I can learn that at the show. If I need to do it at that show.
Yeah, if that's what you want out of me, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But for the most part, it wasn't just going to come into play. And so I was like, the best thing I can do right now is go out and get experience.
Yeah.
Well, there's no real good, like, doorway to walk in and just be like, I'm a manager now, and people will book you.
Yeah,
Like, you have to
I
usually
feel
be-
for managers in the business because it's got to be really hard to get bookings.
You got to
as
be
a
connected
manager.
to a talent, or you got to be like Jim Cornette
You
or
gotta be
Bobby the
really,
Brain, or
really
something.
good.
Yeah, you have
a really
to.
good manager is an asset. There's
Absolutely.
you don't see that as often in the business, I think.
No.
Or is there a severe lack of
There
quality
is.
good managers, or
There
any
is.
managers in general? Like,
Well, I know wrestling trends tend to follow whatever WWE is doing.
Yeah.
And I know Vince hates managers.
yeah, they don't have
So there was a good
Paul Heyman,
decade or
like
so where there were no managers because
Yeah.
he just doesn't like having them.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of starting to come back a little bit with Lana, which that's a good example, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And Paul Heyman, obviously, and people like that. But
Now
managers-
people just see the mold of a manager. Everyone's just like, I'm just going to be Paul Heyman.
Right,
No, let
exactly.
Paul Heyman be Paul Heyman. Be you.
Be you. Be whatever
We're
you
not
wanna
going to
be.
get a new crop of Bobby the Brains and all that if no one
You got to
is
try
doing
something.
it, being experimental and being
Well, and
creative.
just like a wrestler, you try something. If it doesn't work, take it back to the workshop and try something else. Like you
Yeah.
just gotta experiment because you're right. If you're copying somebody, everyone's gonna be like, "Well, that's a Walmart version of Bobby the Brain. Why would we book him? The real
Yeah.
Bobby the Brain was so great."
Yeah, exactly.
So you want to do
exactly.
something different. But it seemed like refereeing was the way I was gonna get exposure, get into the
Yeah.
business quicker.
So did that come easy for you? Like
It
when you
did.
started the
Well,
ref training?
I'd always watched wrestling, so
Yeah.
I kind of knew the basics. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it than people think.
Yeah.
And I've actually talked to several wrestlers on this very show who said they wouldn't want to be a referee because there's so much work involved because you are paying attention to every quality while they're trying to make sure they're doing the match as they had planned it.
Yeah.
We're trying to make sure that they're safe. We're trying to clear obstacles from the ring in case something gets thrown in or dropped or anything. And we also have to kind of know both sides of the match going
Yeah.
into it so
Yeah,
that we
exactly.
can be in the right position for it and stuff like that. And they say the best referees are the ones that people don't know are there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think there is some truth to that. I also like to
absolutely.
see referees having more personality, like we've been kind of doing with the referee birds. Obviously,
That's all like outside the ring stuff.
Right,
though. I
but
can
it-
be a character outside the ring on Twitter and Instagram and promos, but when it comes to when we're in the ring working, like
Oh,
we're
for sure.
100%
But also,
straight down the middle.
Some of the best referees, Earl Hebner, Little Nate, these guys have a personality. They have a character, even if it is
Yeah.
very muted.
Yeah,
people
yeah.
know who they are, and that's
Like
kind of what
if you
I
look like if you're getting like to bring up AEW for you got
Yeah.
Rick Knox, you know what kind of ref he is.
Exactly.
He's a very no nonsense. You don't push him, he'll push back.
Yeah.
Then you got Bryce Remsburg. He's more like comedy, can do a lot of stuff like that, very exaggerated.
Yeah.
So there's little things that can make a ref different and stand apart, but it's still fitting the same mold and being not seen. But when you
Absolutely.
do see them, you kind of
There's
know,
a reason. It's a story beat. It has an impact. It has a purpose. It's
so
not
they got
just
a little
being
bit. We got a
seen.
little bit of a character, a little bit here and
Yeah,
there.
and I like that. I mean, the goal would still be to end up being a more character-based role because I come from a theater background.
Yeah.
I can't help but want to express myself.
That's why we have the show. You have the show
Exactly,
here as
like-
it is. I want to do more. I want to have fun. You
so
know.
I'd love to be an on-air figure in some fashion as a manager or something like that in the long run, but I do
Yeah, yeah.
love reffing. I really do.
Oh,
Because
it's so fun. It's so rewarding. Like,
I mean,
I absolutely
where
love
else would I be in the same ring as the Rock and Roll Express and Jim Duggan? I got that opportunity through being a ref.
it. Exactly.
Whereas
exactly.
wrestlers might have to work an entire career maybe to get that opportunity. I got to do it because I was a halfway decent ref, and they
Yeah.
decided to book me.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. We got some legends in the ring today.
Yeah.
We need a solid refs.
I mean, I've worked with Gangrel. I've worked with Billy Gunn. These were guys I was watching on TV when wrestling was at one of its peaks.
Yeah.
And now I got to share the ring with them, so it was really, really
Was that
amazing.
like you've had a lot of matches. You always see your Facebook. You're up to 600 now.
Almost 600.
Almost
yeah.
600.
Yeah.
You're right neck
Getting there.
neck
I'm
to
at
neck with me right now.
560-ish.
I hear. What was your first show? Was it a student show or what do you remember?
Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling. I remember it was a student show. Well, the students from the class above mine were having their first matches.
Okay.
And I remember I worked matches with Bud Heavy, JC
Yeah, yeah.
Vega,
Oh, yeah.
Muzzy. They were all having their first matches, and it turned out so was I.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was thrilling. It was exhilarating.
Mm-hmm.
It was a high for me. I mean, a lot of wrestlers talk about the high they get from the crowd.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got that. I got a similar version of that high, maybe not to that level because nobody cared what I was doing.
They're not
but-
popping. They're not popping for us. But
Yeah,
we're part of their energy and
Yeah,
experience.
exactly. I got
and
to
so
share in that energy with them.
Yeah.
And I was hooked, and I was excited to do it. And
Plus, when you're new, just getting in the ring is still an exciting thing.
I remember
And,
my
yeah.
first day of class, the first time I actually stepped foot in a ring. I'd never been in one. I wasn't any one of those kids that got invited into the ring to dance around with a wrestler.
Yeah, none of that.
I had never even touched a wrestling ring. And this chance I got the first day I got to climb in, it was the same feeling I got the first day I got to climb in a show. It was just
Yeah.
here it is. It happened.
And from that first show, did you continue training or just jump right into taking bookings, just never looking back? Just
I took the bookings that I could. I mean, I did the majority of my first year just at Tampa Bay out of respect
Yeah.
to the trainer to make sure that it was cool.
Yeah.
And then once I got the clearance to go, I took whatever bookings I could because especially as a referee, I feel like the best experience you can get is at shows.
Exactly.
All the practice in the world, all the training in the world, like people are going to make mistakes and you got to know when you got to be in that situation. You got to be thrown into the fire.
Plus, like being at a live show, there's lots of little things that can go wrong, like from an office standpoint or something backstage or with the ring. And these are experiences you only get at live shows.
Right.
And as a referee, we're kind of like the extra hand. It's like,
we don't have moves.
We're
we
not
need to
office.
perfect.
We're like kind of half office, so people look to us for like information and answers.
Right.
And so you're not going to get that at practice match.
Right. And
it's
I mean,
just pure mechanics of a match as a practice match, which is good, but the real world experience.
We can practice positioning all day long, but the truth is, in a show, it's going to be all out the window because wrestlers aren't facing a hard camera. They aren't worried about like positioning in the ring. Like their backs to us, that's not necessarily a good thing because they might shove into the corner that we're in. Like that stuff only happens in a show like scenario. And we're not trying to perfect maneuvers. We're not trying to perfect submissions. We're not trying to work on grappling.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff you need to happen in a school. All we have to do is make sure to like keep our counts consistent, make sure our positioning is good, make sure we know the rules, like that kind of stuff.
Like
and
what kind of match are you having? Okay. What are the rules to this? Okay. Are we going by those rules? No, we're just doing whatever we want.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
Whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. So I just found the show scenario to be the better training. Not anything against schools. I don't think schools are necessarily for referees other than those first fundamentals that you get taught about bumping, about knowing about rules, about knowing about hard cam. All that kind of stuff you learn like in the first, 2 months of school, and then after that it's just.
And if you're always at that same, student show, practice match show, there's always the same setup. When you start working different shows, like, okay, their hard cam's over here, or their crowd is shaped like this, or their seats are that far away. Little things that can make every show different and unique.
Well, and it's working with the different talent, too. If you work with the same group of guys over and over again, you get so used to the way they do things that once you actually move on to a different roster, it can completely throw you. And that actually did happen to me a few times where I was put in these scenarios where I was like, oh my God, I'd never practiced this. And I had to get it right. Because there's nothing like screwing up a match with a big talent.
And plus you're getting like different types of wrestling as well. Maybe your school or first starting shows are all just like your basic kind of wrestling crowd. Okay, now I got to go work in front of a Southern style crowd, or some comedy wrestling, or deathmatch.
A hardcore crowd, or a cosplay crowd is a completely different thing.
Yeah,
and,
it's all different. Things you got to know how to do. You go out there and like in front of a deathmatch crowd, you just like straight laced referee. It's like, no, we don't do that here.
No. There's no rules on this show, which may seem easier for us, but actually it's a lot more work because now we're on kind of crowd protection duty. We're also on like wrestler protection duty because if there's no rules, they're going to do stupid stuff.
Like, there's a broken beer bottle. Let me kick that out of the way because that will kill someone.
More extreme stuff to each other, which requires us to step in and check on them more.
You're not going to stop the match because there was some blood.
Right.
You're not pulling the gloves out.
Right.
Like, the commission said there's some blood. We got to stop the match. Like, no, this is
not in Florida.
No, not in Florida.
Not in Florida.
So have you ever worked in a state where there is a license? Or
I have not yet. I worked in Georgia.
Okay.
I actually did get the opportunity to manage the Dirty Blondes in Texas. I didn't get to ref that
nice.
show.
What city was that in?
It was in San Antonio.
Nice.
It was for
I love
Outlaw
San Antonio.
Wrestling. It was an amazing experience. I got to go on a road trip with them. We did
good guys.
big time in Georgia, which was when I got to work with Rock and Roll Express and Jim Duggan. That was awesome. And then I went over and got to do my managerial debut in Texas, a one-off, and then. But those are the two states I've worked in.
Did you play like a character manager, or what was your inspiration?
I had an old school manager vibe in mind, but then as soon as we got to the show, they were like, "You guys are faces," and. As a manager, there's not much you can do as a face.
It limits you,
So
you're just cheering and clapping and pounding the
Exactly.
apron.
I didn't really get to do much, but it was fun.
It's something to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've never got to do any in a manager, so it's like that's a cool, unique experience you get to put on your resume. Like, yep, I've been a manager before.
Yep.
You don't gotta say you did it once. I've been a manager. Managerial
before.
experience in professional wrestling. That's cool.
Yeah. No, it was still a ton of fun, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world because that road trip was.
That's the thing. Just road trips alone, like. If you're not a guy that travels, when you do those road trips, it's just. Those are the memories right there. You get a good group of guys in a car, you have fun.
Well, and we hit
Carfabe that talk,
We hit 2 states in like 3 days.
Yeah.
Like I remember driving all night from Georgia to San Antonio. Like we had to leave the Georgia show at like 11 o'clock at night and drive the entire night to make sure we were in San Antonio on time.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a freaking blast.
Oh,
Like,
that's the fun
sleep
stuff.
deprivation, sleeping in the car. Like I don't even care. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
When it gets to about like 4 a.m. and everyone's super tired, that's when the conversations get real weird.
They get real.
And
That's the best.
At that point, everything's funny as well. So, yes,
It's
those
the
are the
best.
times you remember.
Yeah, it's absolutely the best. And I had a blast doing it. I can't wait to do something like that again because
Yeah.
that's
Then, 'cause I know
that's
you
what it's
and-
all for.
You and Lee, like you guys travel together sometimes. You
We
went up
do.
to USWA, right?
Yes,
I
yeah.
heard that was a good, fun car trip.
It is. We come up with the craziest stuff, and it's just you get to talk to these people and get to know them better. I mean,
Yeah.
you can only know so much about someone when you're at a show. It's another reason, another motivation for these interviews is I like to get to know the people
Yeah.
behind whatever they're showing me at a show.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I gain a whole new level of respect for people, and I feel like you can get that same sensation in car rides. So
Yeah, it's exactly like when I'm in those car rides and we're like bullshitting, talking back and forth. I'm making mental notes like, oh, I gotta remember that if I ever
Yeah.
do a podcast or a promo. That's where you get some good ideas right
exactly,
there.
exactly.
So you've been doing the show for a long time. Do you have any like favorite episodes or like?
Well,
let me get some good Turnbuckle trash talk stories here.
the previous show you hosted was probably one of my favorites because it totally just threw everything for a loop.
Yeah, no, I don't think no one was expecting that.
Yeah, and I enjoy that. I like to
Yeah.
shake it up because, I mean, I do ask a lot of the same questions. I do kind of
Yeah.
get a lot of the same answers, and I could see the show becoming very formulaic. So
Yeah.
when something comes along and shakes it up, it's great. I loved working with Isaiah in the beginning. I was sad that wasn't able to continue longer than it did. But we did 30-second promo episodes, which were fun.
Right,
I
right.
did an entire special about that car ride with the blondes, which was a
Yeah,
blast. And just getting to interview such incredible people. Like I got to talk to Sage Scott, who was just at the beginning of kind of forming the Midnight Tribe
Right,
and talking
right.
about how his big goal was to win the Cruiserweight title. And lo and behold, like a month later, he did.
And you got to see it
And
happen.
I got to see
you got
it
the
happen.
backstory and
Yeah.
then, like the full progress of it. That's really cool.
So that's just a really cool experience. I got to do interviews with PCO on the phone. I got to do an interview
nice,
with
yeah.
Shane Taylor from Ring of Honor on the phone.
Yeah.
I got free tickets to Ring of Honor from doing some promotional work from them because of this show. So that was all really
Pretty
cool
cool.
stuff. Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to do with the show? Like you got some ideas kicking around, like something
I'd love
some cool
to,
outside the box things?
I'd love to take it back to doing more content, but you know, I'm a one-man operation now. I do
Yeah.
this all by myself.
Yeah.
And so considering the editing and the time and everything like that, it's a lot to undertake. So I'm kind of trying to maintain a consistent of doing these interviews.
Yeah.
I'd love to interview more people. I'd love to travel more.
Mhm.
I'd love to talk to people from all over the country. But I'm just kind of happy highlighting the people who I think deserve to be highlighted in the Florida scene.
Yeah.
Because there are such amazing talent here, and whether they're utilized correctly or not, it's not for me necessarily to say, although I do have my opinion on that. I just feel like these are the guys you need to watch out for because they're going to be the big names that I'd really love to see someone like Cyrus Satine, who's been on the show.
Oh, absolutely. It's my boy.
Get signed and be
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to say, like, I got to talk to him early and be one of his earliest interviews.
Yeah.
And really get to see his success and be able to trace it back to the conversations we had. So
Like talking with so many people and different walks of life in the business, you got a pretty good grasp on kind of like the way the wrestling scene is today.
yeah,
How do you feel about wrestling right now in 2019?
it's so funny to me, and I talk about this a lot in the interviews because I always have to give my opinion on this.
Yeah.
I don't think we're in a wrestling boom. Everyone wants to say we are because
Really?
there's so many promotions opening. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is the fan base isn't there yet
Right.
to call it a boom. Yes, the opportunities for workers are there. So is it a worker boom? Probably because
Yeah,
there's
I'd
so
agree
many
with that.
shows.
Yeah.
But NXT, probably one of the best shows on television, isn't breaking 1 million.
Yeah.
AEW isn't breaking 1 million. When we're talking about boom, we were talking about like 4, 5, 6, up to 10 million people watching your show during the Attitude Era.
Yeah. You look at those crowd shots they would do. They would specifically get crowd shots because look at this crowd we
Yeah.
have. It's huge. Let's pan across that.
Absolutely.
Now they kind of stray away from that because now they're sectioning, sections off because there's not enough fans to fill the
Yeah,
arena.
they're draping off entire sections of the
Yeah.
arena.
Meanwhile, the show is huge.
Right.
It's on the network, global reach, so many promotions, but the fans aren't there yet.
Well, and people want to say, well, that doesn't include streaming. And yes, that will play a factor.
Yeah.
But also, the World Series Game 7 had 10 million viewers.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you can't tell me that you can't get those numbers. You can.
Like
but you
WrestleMania
have to have a
3,
good
Andre
product.
Hogan, it was Silverdome. Like
You can
let's
get the
let's
numbers.
If we get
you
those
can
numbers,
sell out
then,
the audiences, but
Yeah.
you're not because the fans aren't convinced.
Yeah.
So is it a boom? I say no. I say it's the spark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I mean is it's the spark that could light a fire or it's the spark that could just die
I
out.
think we have like all the pieces in place right now in the wrestling business. Then when the fans do show up, then it's gonna be hot.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
there's something for everyone. There's no excuse not to find something you like in the wrestling world. NWA is amazing.
Yeah.
AEW doing incredible things. WWE, meh. NXT, amazing.
Yes, yeah,
so
yeah.
there is something
for everyone. Absolutely,
It's
yeah.
not impossible
And if you're
to
on,
like
on the
wrestling.
indies watching things, like you got so many options near you, or just
PWG,
streaming
yeah.
online. It's like, oh, I'm kind of digging this style. Oh, boom, okay, well, here's this promotion, that promotion, this promotion. Something for everyone.
And I mean, in Florida, there were in 2019 67 promotions.
Yes,
that
yeah.
ran at least one show. Now, that's I would be convinced more than the rest of the country combined. As far as promotions, I could be wrong about that. I have done no research.
Yeah.
But
that's a large
lot.
number for one state.
That's a lot.
One
and
state.
It's not necessarily a good thing.
No, yeah, I've heard it both ways. It's opportunities for the workers, and
Well, it's
I
fine,
want to
but-
see all the guys get paid. We all want to get paid.
But how much are they getting paid? I say this too. It's a
Yeah.
buyer's market for promoters.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are so many talent wanting to work that you can pay them next to nothing. That you
Yeah.
can say, oh, I'm giving you exposure. But to who? 10 people in the audience? 15 people in the audience?
Yeah,
There's 3 or
exactly.
4 shows running on the same day at the same time.
Like if you're working for free, then I probably don't want you. I'd rather
Right.
have the guy I got to pay 50 to because he's going to deliver a better product to me.
I always believe quality over quantity.
Absolutely.
And 67 is definitely quantity, not quality. So, I mean, I'm glad that there are opportunities for workers. I mean, it's how I get booked.
Yeah,
But
it's working well for me.
but I'd like to see a stronger focus on quality. I'd like to see a stronger focus on community, the wrestling community,
Yeah,
helping each other out, making sure that there aren't clashing shows running, that kind of stuff. So.
Do you feel like that's the biggest misconception in the business today? Is like whether it's a boom or not, or is there some other issues you'd say?
I could definitely say that's a big misconception, especially amongst workers. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
talked to so many workers, even before AEW started, that were saying, oh, it's a boom, man. It's totally a boom. And I'm like, to who?
Yeah.
Who's watching? Like,
Yeah.
a boom, Goldberg and Steve Austin on the cover of TV Guide. That's a boom.
Yeah.
No,
Bret Hart on The Simpsons.
Right.
Like other guys on Saturday Night
The
Live.
Rock doesn't count. He's a movie star now. He's not a wrestler.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't think it's as big as people want to believe, but I think the potential is there. So yeah, I'd say that's one of the misconceptions. I'd say the other misconception is that you can make a lot of money doing it. I think that people truly do believe that there's a way to
Yeah. Don't get into wrestling for the
don't
money.
get into wrestling for
At
money.
least not your first 10, 15 years of your career.
Unless you are one of the lucky few. It's the same in sports. I say like maybe 10% of Pee Wee athletes get put on a high school team.
Yeah.
And 10% of them get onto a college team.
Yeah.
And 10% of that maybe go pro.
As they say, the cream rises to the top.
And the money's in pro.
Yeah.
So all those other levels, you're not making any money.
Yeah,
You're just
yeah.
hoping that you'll get to the level. So I think the potential for money in wrestling is there. Again, if it's quality over quantity, you get the draws, you make the money, people get paid better. I mean, people used to make a living in the indies in the territory days.
Oh.
The possibility is there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's potential, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
No, I think the biggest misconception is the boom, though. Definitely.
Yeah. I'd sign off on that. I'd
Yeah.
agree to that.
Yep.
Like if a guy wanted to get into the business doing whatever, would you have any advice for someone starting out or wanting to get in? It's like they haven't trained or nothing. They're thinking about it.
You
What
gotta
would you
want
tell
it.
them?
A lot of people say this when I ask them that same question, but it's 100% true. You've got to want it because
Yeah.
okay, let me take it back. The
There we
first
go.
thing I would say is don't get into the business because
Yeah.
there's too many people in the business.
Yes,
Like
yes.
everybody and their mother seems
Yeah.
to be a wrestler.
I would
these
say the
days.
same thing. Oh, I
So
want
don't.
to get into wrestling. Like, get a network account. And
Get
just watch wrestling.
Get into another
Buy some
aspect of
shirts,
wrestling.
Yeah.
Get into another aspect. Be a ring announcer. Be backstage.
Be a graphic designer. Design flyers.
Find a way to make money off of
wrestlers. Like audio visual guy. Yeah.
Like, do merch creation. Like you said, graphic design. Find another way to be involved, because even I knew when I got to training, I was like, I don't want this bad enough to be a wrestler.
Yeah.
But I do want this bad enough to be involved.
Exactly.
And so I found a way to be involved. And so to that I would say, if you really want to be a wrestler, make sure you really want it. But if you just really want to be involved in the business, there are plenty of opportunities. They're not going to pay well. They're going to be a lot of work. Like ring crew, a lot of work. But guess what? You get to still commingle with the same wrestlers. You get to still form the same relationships.
And you're
you
helping
get to attend
a show.
so many shows.
You're making wrestling better, and if you love it and you're doing it, maybe you're not great in the
yeah,
ring.
Austin
whatever.
was one of my favorite guests, because that's a guy who loves wrestling, but doesn't need to be a wrestler.
Yeah.
So there are other ways to be involved. There's other ways to be a part of it, but also just love wrestling. Like, be a fan.
Yeah.
Go to shows, buy merchandise, support people. Plant yourself in the crowd and actually start some chants, because these dead quiet crowds are the worst.
Oh, I love the chant starters. They're my some of my favorite people.
Yeah. So love wrestling, but love it enough that you're sure that you want to do it, because it's really difficult.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
Absolutely. Like, I 100% agree with all of that.
Yeah. It's not glamorous at all.
No, it's funky.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you would change about wrestling, maybe?
I think, like I was saying, quality over quantity. I'd like to see these people who just get their tax return and say, I have an idea for a wrestling show.
I love the Tax Return Wrestling Federation. That's my favorite booking I get.
Yeah,
It pays well, and it's
also
once
a
year.
one-time booking, or maybe twice.
Depending how they book their show, you might get 2 shows out of them, yeah.
I'd rather see them really support something they believe in.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see people stop thinking they can do things better or differently, and actually just go support wrestling, because all you're doing by having a one-off show or starting your own promotion is you're watering down an already ridiculously watered down industry.
Yeah.
So I would say, let's focus on quantity over quality. Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Let's focus on a sense of community and make sure that we're all working to the same goal of making wrestling cool again, because to be honest, wrestling's not cool right now. We want to think it is. I think it's cool always.
I think it's awesome, yeah.
But that's because we're in it. But in
however,
the general public, wrestling isn't cool. It's, that's the fake stuff, or whatever.
Yeah.
People just aren't hot on it anymore. So let's do stuff to make people hot on it again.
Yeah.
We can all make money doing this. I truly, truly believe that, because people love to be entertained. And so we got to come out with some really, really good entertainment, and not just have a show every single weekend. 2 shows on the same day every single weekend.
Yeah.
There's plenty of room for everybody to expand and grow. And let's cut down on some of the, I feel like running a show, but I don't know how, but I have money.
Well, speaking of running shows, because you run your own wrestling video podcast.
Yes.
And as we talk, you say the state of wrestling in Florida is oversaturated. How do you feel about the state of wrestling-related podcasts and stuff?
Oh, absolutely oversaturated. It was so stupid of me to get into this, to be completely honest. It was so stupid of me to think I could do this on any kind of level. I mean, the people who have
you stuck with it, though. You did it.
Well, I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
I just like doing it. And I don't expect to get very far doing it. I don't expect.
It's a fun thing you
love
doing.
But I get to hang out with my friends, and I get to talk about something I love.
Yeah.
We get to have stories and play games and do stuff like that. And I've actually gotten to go to shows like Ring of Honor or like Blueprint. I've been an invited guest to things because of the podcast, and that's just cool.
Yeah.
But this was just kind of a what like wrestling promoters deciding to start a show. It's that's a really dumb idea unless you're really sure you want to stick it out.
Yeah. It's your money, but
but
I'll definitely work it.
I enjoy doing it, so I'm just going to keep doing it until I don't enjoy it anymore.
Right. Well, that's fair enough. That's fair. I said the same thing about refereeing. I still love it, so I'm going to keep doing it.
So when you stop loving it, you should really stop doing it, because there's someone who loves it that could really use your spot.
Your spot, exactly.
So
because with podcasts, there's not limited space on the shelf.
No.
But you're fighting for listeners. So, is there any like particular shows that you follow and listen to regularly?
Oh my God.
That you might take inspiration from?
When I'm not recording this podcast, I'm pretty much always listening to someone else's podcast.
Okay. So that's like your go-to, like at home or driving is always a podcast.
Absolutely, 100% of the time. And I don't listen to a lot of the common ones that people listen to, like Talk is Jericho. I don't listen to it unless there's an episode I really want to listen to, like the Moxley episode I had to listen to.
Yeah, that was
everyone
was talking about that one. That was
like
a good
you
one.
had to. But I listened to a guy named Salamonster, and the Salamonster Sounds Off.
Okay.
Amazing podcaster. One-man crew, very similar to me.
Yeah.
But he recaps everything. His shows are usually like 3 hours long a week.
Yeah.
But they're the best show out. I honestly believe that because he has a very strong, informed opinion. He's had interviews with some of the biggest names in the past. And his content is always interesting, engaging, and honest, which I really appreciate. Because there's a lot of shills out there that are secretly working for or trying to get the attention of AEW or WWE, and they're going to give you the biased opinion. Whereas this guy, he's just completely honest, and he has facts to back it up. And I really appreciate
that. Sounds like a good one. I have to check that out.
I really appreciate it. I also listen to Going in Raw,
which
has a daily show, and they also do a video podcast as well, which kind of gave me some of the inspiration to do this.
Yeah. I always enjoy the video podcasts more over like the audio-based ones. They both have their spot. But
their
I
episodes.
find myself going to YouTube more for my podcast.
Exactly.
Than I do like, Spotify or Google Podcasts.
Well, again, it's more engaging.
It gives me something to look at.
It's really easy to tune
they
out
put, like,
just audio.
clips when they're talking or pictures. Like, you got my attention. Flashy pictures. Oh, yeah. I like that.
Well, I love these guys because they had a segment called We Book Raw where they basically booked WWE on a video game.
Okay.
But they like changed up gimmicks and ran ridiculous angles.
Yeah.
I found that really funny. They do a question and answer thing. I really like the content they put out, and it's something every day.
Yeah.
And it's less than an hour. It's about an hour every day. So that keeps me engaged.
Wrestling with Regret. I'm big on that one. He's always got.
I've got to check that. I hear about it.
Oh, it's
all
really
the time.
good. Yeah, Brian Zane. He's awesome. Because he does like different things. One will be like an old pay-per-view recap or things like that. He switches up what the episodes are about. So
the
content.
The truth of the matter is, I don't watch all the products anymore. Like I can't watch
It's
Raw or
so
SmackDown.
much, yeah.
I can't.
And you want
not only because it's so much, it's not good.
Yeah,
So I have to hear.
And what are you going to get out of it? You're going to be I want to be the 1,000th guy to review last week's Raw.
I'm going to watch 3.5 hours of Raw and regret the time I spent watching it.
Yeah.
Or I can listen to a 1 hour episode from some guys whose opinion I honestly trust, and they'll recap everything, and I can just say, okay, I'm glad I missed it.
Got it. Yeah, we're good to go.
I'll let someone else do the work on this one. That's why this podcast isn't a Raw recap show. Although I'd originally thought about doing it that way and kind of started doing it.
I remember the earlier ones you had those on
I can't.
I would hate to do that.
I can't.
And plus, I got to sit back and be like, who am I to critique and recap someone else's product? Like, no one cares about my opinion, and I ain't been in the business long enough to have an opinion. Shut up and know your place.
If you want to hear my opinion, come ask me. Like honestly, if
I'll
you
talk
see
to
me at a
someone
show,
about it.
I'll tell you honestly. I'm not afraid to tell you what I think about it. But again, I don't want to be that 1,000th person, like you said, that's telling their opinion about what everybody else is saying. So
Survivor Series.
I'd rather, again, take this opportunity to highlight guys you may never have heard of, but I hope and I pray that you will hear of.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, I think that about wraps us up for today.
We're going to take it home.
We're going to take it home. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. This is your usual host, Kent Klausner, today being the guest of honor. Thank you for watching.